Welcome to That One Time with Adam Metwally, the podcast conversing the pillars of health, wealth, art, and wisdom for all you holistic hustlers out there. I'm here with Robbie Bent, CEO and co-founder of Othership, and we're at the beautiful Music for a While studio. Robbie, welcome to the podcast. So, Robbie, first question for you is, there's a cold plunge and sauna on every influencer's Instagram story these days, but most people are either winging it or they're overdoing it and completely missing the point. So I want to set the record straight with you. What is the right way to use ice baths and saunas if you actually want to improve your mental health, energy, resilience, and physiology?
Yeah, I mean, super hot take. It's like I'll give you what you should do physiologically, but super hot take is like, ignore that stuff, listen to your body and do it with friends. Like the number one thing you can do is just go do it in a group instead of going out to a bar. Fantastic way to connect. And like, that's it. Just go, show up, go in the sauna till you get too hot, jump in the cold plunge, take 2 deep breaths, come out, be with a group of friends, and hang out and tell jokes and laugh after. Like, there's so much. And that is, I think, what is important. And like, what is bringing health that people underestimate is just like being in a group of people, laughing, conversing, connecting, and the real power of these things, like creating dopamine, norepinephrine rush. Any social anxiety, insecurity sort of fades away. And so it creates this like platform to really connect, especially with strangers or people you don't know as well. So I think that's most important, is just using it as a social tool. Now, if you want to optimize your health benefits, there's a million, discussions about these, as you mentioned, from like every health and wellness podcaster, but the like, kind of rule of thumb is about 80 minutes of sauna per week, around 180 degrees, and 11 minutes of plunging per week, call it like around 40 degrees.
Yeah. So could you do that in one session?
Probably better, like more sessions are better, but you can like 4 20-minute saunas, you could do it no problem. And I personally think that's too much of an ice bath for sessions, depending on the temperature. But if you're on 40 degrees, like 2 to 3 minutes is great. And so I would do that a couple times. Try to do like maybe 2 ice baths a session at 2 minutes each. So you're like 4 minutes in, and you do that twice a week, and that's like pretty good.
Yeah, great. What are the benefits that you found in health?
Like for me, I was mentioning just struggling with addiction. And so it was just having a cool place at night to go.
Get some dopamine.
Exactly. But it increases your sustained levels of dopamine. So everything else, coffee, cigarettes, cocaine, you're like pumping the dopamine, your phone, shopping, gambling, and you just need more and more.
Yeah.
And so it's ruining your baseline ability to be happy, basically, without like more and more stimulation. Yeah. And so the ice bath is spiking your dopamine, but they found sustained levels of dopamine growing over time. Mm-hmm. So it's really good for repatterning addiction. And people aren't talking about this a lot, but we see a lot of people who used to struggle with drugs coming into Othership and using cold plunges and like finding this as like a fantastic sobriety tool.
Yeah.
So for me, it was really like having something to do in a group at night that was healthy. That's like the number one wellness hack for me personally.
It's a healthy high.
Yeah, exactly.
You feel high.
So there's that. And then there's also like, most people when they're going out are reaching for alcohol because it's a stress reducer, anxiety reliever. And so if we're in a group at a networking event, like, fucking shoot me in the face now, I don't want to talk to a whole bunch of strangers. What are they thinking of me? This is weird. I don't know. Like, most people feel uncomfortable. And so you reach for alcohol. You have 2 drinks, the fear receptors in the brain reduce, you feel good. So you can do the same thing here. And it actually sets you up in a way to connect in like a much more vulnerable state of excitement. And so we found it's like the best platform for allowing people to make friends.
Yeah, definitely. And potentially date as well.
Yeah, we have singles nights at Othership, and they've been pretty successful. And both friendship, we call it, and then we have lovership, which is like a party of singles.
That's funny.
So they'll have ice baths, and they'll be, there's 8, and you'll be partnered, and you do 30 seconds, and we'll ask a question. So you do 30 seconds together, come out, both answer the question over 2 minutes. Then you shift and you do it with a new person, and you end up doing 8 30-second ice baths, answering 8 questions, meeting 8 new people, and it's been like extremely successful.
That's so fun. I mean, I came for the first time to Othership through a friend's brand. Absolutely loved it. So yeah, really, really enjoyed the work you do. So it's great to have you on. I am wondering about your story a little bit more.
Yeah.
So you have a really, really interesting arc that's got you here. So why don't we dig into the context of the early years of your life that will allow us to understand you and how we got to this point?
Yeah, absolutely. Any particular time, or just go?
Start from the start.
Yeah, I guess I think I always really liked, I think I felt insecure. I always really liked to be in groups. Like it was super fun for me. So I'd play sports. I'd go out. I like to go out and party. Even from like, grade 6, I would like to be, I think because of insecurity, like the center of attention. Like I would feel if I knew the answer at school, I'd put up my hand. I'd want to be picked. I'd want to be seen, and to be like seen made me feel good and made me feel more confident, made me feel more loved. So there's something there about like not being seen when I'm younger and then having to do something to like earn that. Mm-hmm. And so as a result, I would love to go out and like be around people and feel like cool, perceived as cool.
Yeah.
And so to do that, I thought I needed money.
Yeah.
And to do that, I thought I needed to be successful. And so I have like nice clothes, this kind of stuff. So in high school, I worked really hard. I got into business school and I was like, oh, if I can just be rich, like, that's it. And my dad worked in business. And so he worked really hard. And my mom, Eastern European background, was like, if you don't work hard, you're going to be homeless. Yeah. And so like, my parents pushed me to skip a grade when I was younger, and they really pushed me to like go to university and work hard. And so that's always been ingrained in me of like, I need to be successful so that I'm worthy of love. Mm-hmm. And so I have a deep ambition and drive to achieve. And so I started my career in finance. I worked in investment banking. I didn't even know what that was. It was just like the most competitive thing in university where people were like, oh, this pays the most and this is what the smartest kids do. So I was like, fuck that. I'm gonna get one of these jobs. And I never made like the tier 1 investment bank. I was in like a tier 2, 3, like, and I would have like nightmares about the job interviews. And then at the firm, like somebody threw a stapler at me once, and like I'd sleep under my desk, like really hardcore work environment 20 years ago now. That firm I worked at, I ended up going to hedge fund and doing some investing. And I was really interested, but I just wasn't motivated by the people I worked with. Like I looked, and a lot of people, family life was tough, people drinking a lot, not that healthy. Just kind of looking at like 22, it's like, is this really for me? And the firm I worked imploded in the credit crisis. I lived in LA, so no finance jobs. And I just like, okay, well, I'm going to do a startup. Like that seems easy. There's this guy, Mark Zuckerberg, who's my age, maybe slightly older. Facebook is exploding. And it was the first time, like when I graduated university, it wasn't clear that you could do a startup as a college kid. Like it was really new. And so, all of a sudden that's possible. Yeah. And so I thought like, fuck, this can be easier than banking. Like it's not going to be as much work. Like this, I can do this. Partnered with technical co-founder, ended up raising money, built something kind of like a Google Fi. It was like a SIM card. Yeah. It's a SIM card you put in your phone. It would overlay your SIM. And then depending on where you would go, would like, hey, you're from the US, you come to Canada, grant you a Rogers SIM card, all in the back end. You wouldn't pay roaming fees.
Yeah.
Over 4 years.
It's a clever idea.
It was cool. It was great. Cause at the time roaming was like, you'd have like if you're using your phone for business, it'd be like $1,000 bill. And so we had this like man in the middle approach where you would travel, you would use it, you get a text and say, hey, you just saved $900 on that phone call. And we would just give it to ultra rich angel investors when they were traveling, wanted to use their phone. They're like, oh, this is great. So we were able to raise money from that, but we just weren't able to make it like a consumer grade product. Like 2 out of 10 would break when you put them in the phone. You would travel to France and, the network wouldn't work and we didn't have a direct connection. And so like people would complain. It just wasn't like
it's a hard business.
Wasn't quite good enough. And then roaming prices declined like
exponentially.
Exactly. And something that used to be $1,000 a trip is, now maybe $50 a trip, but it's just kind of automated. And so over a 4-year period, we spent all this money, hired, I made so many mistakes there, which we can talk about, but that business ended up failing. And so, the first thing I had just, hey, I'm going to try and make money. Didn't work out for me. Then it was like, I'm going to do this because it's a good business opportunity. I don't give a shit about roaming. It was like, yeah, I can make money here. And then it failed. And I remember like I had an okay salary there and I had some savings from finance and I burned through them all. And I was overspending on like my car, my apartment, like, going out a lot. So I wanted to like feel cool. Yeah. And I had like $60 in my bank account. And I remember like seeing that number. And I remember like I had this like old car and I didn't even have like suitcases. I put all my stuff in plastic bags to like move out. And I was struggling with drugs and alcohol at the time. And I just remember like driving out of Toronto feeling like so defeated to the house I grew up with in Guelph. And I was like living in my parents' basement and taking these like plastic bags, my only belongings in the basement, having like $60 and then having to ask them like, hey, I want to go for dinner with some friends in Toronto. Can I like borrow money from you at, 30 years old? And it was just super embarrassing, especially because at that time, most important thing to me was like being like, that's what I patterned my life on. I was like, I want to be successful. I worked hard as judged by like how much money I have and what kind of things I have. So it was a fucking really tough.
Yeah. Time. Sounds like it. It's funny, like Such a big kicker.
Yeah,
Bigger
exactly.
kicker.
Hey, but the learning is just like, you never really fail because all of, at the time I was like, okay, I'm 30-ish. I'm not an engineer. I'm not really a salesperson. I'm not a designer. I'm not in finance. Like, what are my skills? Like, I don't have any skills. And that's what I thought. I was literally like, I don't have any skills. And really though, all those experiences like trained me how to raise money, how to hire people, how to build a team, how to negotiate, how to tell if somebody's bullshitting, how to like quickly solve problems in like a very scrappy way. So all that work, and then even in finance, like that taught me how to like think about valuations for a business, how to negotiate when we're raising funds, how to like tell a story to investors, how to look through a P&L. And so I was actually just building up a skill set over 10 years that like has served me super well now. So it's like, you kind of never really fail. You're just learning until you succeed.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
Stop you.
Yeah. Then you fail.
Then you fail. Yeah. That's the Founders podcast. It's pretty clear on that. We were talking about in the rapid fire how the Founders podcast has been a really good tool that you've used to just keep pushing forward in a tough environment. So let's talk about that for a little bit longer.
Yeah, just think think about like somebody building a business over like a 50-year career, right? Like how many learnings they have. And then that learning, it takes a documentary or biography maker, I don't know, 2,000 hours or 5,000 hours to make that artwork. And then it takes you 40 hours to read it. And then David will go through that and condense that into like 40 minutes or 50 minutes or 1 hour. And then he'll edit it down. So like there's not even, he does his own editing. And so he'll edit it down. So there's not even like a missed word there. So you're getting like the learnings of the best entrepreneurs to ever walk the planet across like all industries and like even some that are 150 years old to like in your brain. And then you're not only learning one, you're learning the lessons of all of them that are the same. And what you find across these like 400 people is there's just so many similarities, commonalities. Yeah. And so it just helped me as like a framework for how I'm thinking, so like one really interesting thing is just like being in the details. And I'm like so in the details, like to the point of, you might call it a micro manager. Like I'm caring if I go in, like, what is the song playing? Yeah. How did the front desk greet you?
Yeah.
What is the email receipt look like? What does the sandwich board on the front desk look like? What is the name of our class? Even like my wife runs our social and our marketing, and she's my co-founder and head of brand. And like, we will look at Instagram posts together, each caption, and like, change the language on that caption. And it seems like you're fucking anal. Like, CEO, why are you doing this? And then I hear on Founders, like, that's what Steve Jobs does. Yeah. That's what the guy from Raising Cane's does. It's like, the real founders do that shit. And so it made me realize like, yeah, be in the details, be anal. Like you can delegate things, but like care about your product. And so that's like a learning, no coach or anything told me that. So, and there's like probably 10 of those if we dig in of what I've learned from that podcast.
Yeah, one of them that I've really keep thinking about, because I started off my career in events and I was pretty tight with money, like really, really tight. Came from a scarcity place and being in a small city and having some success in a small city, very, very, very tight. Like I got a reputation pretty quickly for just being like a hard ball and difficult to deal with. Like nice, but I would push for deals that, would constantly have feedback of, oh, we've never taken a price like that. But then they'd say yes. So it would confuse me. It's bit me in the ass a little bit because I got this reputation. And then when easier people to deal with more money to spend came along, they were the preferences. So I had to be the top of the top. I had to be at the absolute top of my game if I wanted to play, like be tight. And then I went through this whole little journey of maybe I'm wrong, blah, 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 blah. Maybe it's the wrong way and then I lost $250,000 trying to run festivals. So I've gone back to the drawing board again and listened to that podcast a bunch of times. And there's a very big commonality of being extremely frugal. Very, very big commonality. And so now I'm kind of going back to potentially being tight, but maybe a little bit more relationship focused, but frugal on the important things that don't necessarily hurt the relationships. I think that's the fine line I've found, and Founders has really helped me to get that framework of thinking too.
I think you have to be, especially when you start. And so, that company Robley I mentioned, we raised like $20 million and just like burned it all. And we had 100 employees and we had people like flying first class places and just like all of a sudden you have this money, you're doing all these things. And then I Othership was literally like an ice bath we built by hand in my backyard. No permit, free for people to come, WhatsApp group, no brand, no name, and to name it, we like put a Google Doc together and asked 40 people what they should name it. And we decided on Inward. And then we spent $25 on like a logo joy and just had like a little back end mind body platform. So to get it set up was like nothing. Then we built it, the first version in our garage ourselves for like sub 80 grand with like our own hands. And so I'm a firm believer until you know what you're doing, you just need to be very careful with every dollar. Like I'll still look at these like little tiny expenses and we'll, you know, like I'm in New York, I'm sleeping on people's couches.
Yeah.
Like I can personally afford to, but I just like, I like to push it, and it's hard to hold the team accountable when you're not like living those same values.
Yeah.
And so, you know, Jeff Bezos at Amazon, like the desks were just made out of like these wood doors, you know? And so if he is maintaining frugality at a company of that size, of course, it's important.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I want to jump back again to the cold plunge and sauna stuff. What's an example of a story that the cold plunge and sauna combination has had on someone's life in the positive? It could be yours, it could be somebody else's, it could be both.
Man, I've seen the craziest, like, you know, done meditation retreats, psychedelic medicine retreats. I've seen people come and say like, hey, you know, I couldn't leave my house. Like I had so much anxiety from COVID that I literally couldn't leave I would get afraid. You know, remember when COVID was hitting and it was like, don't leave and don't see anybody and like, we're all going to die.
You're gonna kill your nan.
And exactly. And like people who are like, hey, I would like an Uber Eats, I wouldn't go to the door to even meet someone because I was so scared, and then like sanitize the food before I touched it. And there was that person when we had the garage was able to start coming Inward alone using an app and coming to use a cold plunge and sauna repatterned her fear so she could go back out in society.
Wow.
I've seen like at least 50 people addicted to drugs and alcohol that are like sober. Mm-hmm. We had somebody do a wedding proposal 2 weeks ago, like people that met at Othership and like actually legitimately got married. That. And they did the proposal in the space, like in the tea room. In the tea room.
Not in the cold plunge. It would have been so funny.
Yeah. But funny enough, I actually, my wife and I got engaged in the sauna with a ring was in one of those ice balls. And
that's so
she was
cute.
giving me a massage and it melted in her hand. And so it's like, it was our first date.
And then you drop it in the crack.
Yeah, so I think from stories of like, you know, also people coming to Toronto, New York, hey, I didn't know anybody and I've met like 6 friends here. Like we have this WhatsApp group and people will share, hey, I can't go today. Does anyone want my pass? Or like, I'm going to organize a dinner. People are organizing Othership escape rooms before the Othership session, and they'll go together in the community to this escape room with each other.
How do I get in this WhatsApp group?
Yeah, man, 22 visits. So we call I think it's important to have like your own naming when you're building your brand, build your own world. And so we call, you know, the customers are called journeyers, and then journeyers that have come 22 times are called shipheads, and then they get invited to this like community. Yeah. And I think that's like really important for creating friendships. Yeah,
great. I love it. Well, let's talk about your personal experience with cold plunge and sauna. You touched on the addiction and you've touched on how it's impacted a lot of people with addiction. I personally have had a lot of positive impact with the cold plunge and sauna. I, during COVID, started doing ocean swims with some friends. That turned into getting a bucket of ice on the beach during COVID with 3 of us. It became 5, it became 20, it became 40, and a guy's running a business off the back of it. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the work. And I had a little one in my home back in Australia. You got a chest freezer and we insulated it. And every morning I committed to myself during the worst period of time business-wise that I've ever had, that I would get up and I would go into that thing and I'd sit in that thing for 2 minutes. And I remember staring at the roof every morning and being like, fuck, I'm awake again. And I have to get up and I have to do this thing. And I would get in there and I would hate my life for 2 minutes. And then I'd get out and be like, oh, that's going to be the hardest thing I've had to deal with today. So I'd love to hear your experience with the cold plunges, the saunas, this whole space, and what actually happened.
Yeah, I use it for a number of different things. So like what you mentioned, fantastic. I mean, how I was exposed to it was our first date, I kind of mentioned. And so I was struggling with drugs and alcohol, lived in Israel, which we talked about, went and actually tried ayahuasca for the first time.
Yeah.
Was in Peru, came back and was like pretty committed to being sober. Told all my friends, like, I never want to drink again. Don't offer me alcohol. And there was this girl, we've been talking, really liked her. She messaged me like, hey, I was listening to Rhonda Patrick. I heard about these cold plunges. I know you don't drink. Let's do something at night. And so we searched for like where to find a cold plunge in Toronto. This is 2017. So it's like, 8 years ago, maybe 2016.
Yeah.
9 years ago. And we found a Russian bathhouse on the outskirts of town. So we drove like 40 minutes outside of town. There's a sauna, cold plunge. It was the first time, like, I didn't really know what you're supposed to do, how you do it. There's no guidance. It's just a, Russian bathhouse. And we got in, no phone, end up having dinner at the bathhouse and have like the greatest conversation. Usually first date, it's like, oh, I'm trying to impress this person. What do I say? What should I talk about? I'm nervous. I go to alcohol. It was an amazing first date despite being in bathing suits. Felt so comfortable and safe. And that became a ritual for us every single week because I wasn't drinking. I didn't want to be around alcohol. So we'd go and, we lived in Berlin, we lived in San Francisco, and we'd be going to these bathhouses, and it became like, this is the thing we do socially with both like romantically as a date and then with friends. And so same thing like Friday night where you grab a group of 10 people, make a little WhatsApp group, go to different bathhouses. And then every time, no matter how dingy the bathhouse or old the bathhouse, would wake up the next morning, feel fucking awesome.
Yeah.
The conversations would be great. So that's like one use case is like, connection. So like call it dating, hanging out with friends in like a really nice environment. Then I like got pretty addicted to the cold plunge in a healthy way and was doing it every day. And so a couple of things I found was I've done a lot of meditation, and like meditation's a struggle for many people. It's like, hey, I'm sitting here, nothing's happening. What's supposed to be happening? And so when you get in the cold plunge, there's such a spike in norepinephrine. You're like, it's a neurotransmitter responsible for like mood, attention, vigilance. You feel like I am alive. I'm here. And you have to like really focus on your breathing and let go. And through that letting go, you're like completely present. So if you're struggling, you mentioned when the times were hardest, and what happens is instead of your mind running loops of like, I'm not good enough, this is never going to work, I have all these to-do lists, you get in there and that all goes away and you're like completely present. And so for a lot of people who have like these crazy thought loops, like surprisingly at Othership, it's like a emotional wellness business, but the customer is very much a corporate professional who's like burnt out and who's like A-type and who's just thinking all the time. It's like, I can't relax in my own body. For New York, it's probably the best city in the world that we could have opened something like this. And so that person goes in the plunge and it's like, everything I have to do today is gone for a few minutes. This is like pure relaxation. So that's another use case that's fantastic. And then, you mentioned like resilience. So I would go in there, we own a few restaurants, and during COVID, we're like, okay, our restaurants are gone. We're toast. This is so stressful. We're also trying to open a bathhouse like prior, like, okay, this is 2 years of research.
Not Othership Bathhouse, different concept.
Yeah. So it was going to be called Vine Street, same partners, but before Othership, it was just going to be like a really cool traditional bathhouse, but like upscale version, similar to like Bathhouse in New York.
Yep.
With towel waving, all that kind of stuff. And then before we opened, while we were researching, we were like, oh, let's just do this ice bath in the backyard. It'd be a good way to build a community. It'd be really cool. And that, if we had never done that, we never would have gone forward with the experience, because COVID would have crushed us. And so COVID's hitting. We have these people who are coming to the garage, and every day I would just go in there and feel better. My partner was like fully leveraged, like, owned 5-6 quick service restaurants, a bunch of nightclubs. And he was just like, fuck, I'm like, I've signed all these leases. I have all this debt. We're going to be finished. And he would go in every day. And so I think when you're dealing with like pretty intense fear, it's awesome for like building resilience.
Yeah.
So the physical stuff, I get sick less for sure, but it's not as much for me. Like I don't care about, maybe my inflammation is lower. I don't care about that. I don't care about the recovery. It's just like, how do I feel mentally? And I think in like 2 minutes, there's nothing you can do in the world that can make you feel that way. And so either whether it's connection, resilience, or just like getting a bit of space, making you feel alive, I think that's why I cold plunge.
Yeah, nice. I have also started to dig into the sauna side of things, especially with, Huberman and stuff saying 20 minutes, whatever it is, 20 minutes 4 times a day is really good. So I just started trying my best. I haven't done it in a little while because I haven't found a place that's nearby that I like.
Where do you live?
I'm in downtown Brooklyn right now. So it's not.
It's far, man. We're coming though. We're coming. That's on our roadmap. I was just I
like, hey, I'm going to last in downtown Brooklyn. But hopefully I'll be back in Manhattan sooner rather than later. And,
I had like a bunch of passes for you to go anyways, just so you can, when you're around here, you can go.
Thank you. So the sauna's been interesting because do you know much about Ayurveda by any chance?
No.
So basically there's like different body types, like a cool body type, a hot body type, and somewhere in the middle. I can't remember the details, but I'm just a very hot person. So I found that heat agitates me and I get really pissed off. If I'm like overheated, I'm like shitty. And then I force myself to do the saunas, and it's in a weird way tempered my mood naturally. So now I can sit in these really uncomfortable, longer time situations and be fine. That just agitation is just dissipated. So that's been a really interesting alternative resilience component for the saunas. And the microplastics thing that everyone's talking about, apparently saunas are amazing to help detox that. And lifespan, that's right? There's a huge jump in the lowering of cardiovascular disease. Do you know much about this?
Yeah. So you're just like working out your cardiovascular system. So you're dilating and contracting your blood vessels. So when you're in the sauna, you're dilating your vessels, your heart, it's easier to pump plasma through the body. And so as a result, it's like a exercise mimetic, they call it. So it's very similar to exercising. You're raising your heart rate. You're improving your heart's ability and strength. And so as a result, you reduce cardiovascular disease significantly, which is like the number one killer in North America.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
For what? You're just sitting in a room that's warm with some mates.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're putting your body under stress, right? And so like similar to what you're doing in exercise, and it's just easier to do. Like, 9 p.m. after a long work day, if you're like, hey man, let's go do a Barry's boot camp. It's like,
fuck that.
Yeah. But if someone's like, let's go in a sauna, every time, like I went today at 7 a.m. and I was just like, if it was a workout, I'd be like, fuck, I'm so tired. But I was like, oh, I can't wait. Well, as soon as I get there, I'm just going to lay down and relax.
Yeah.
Like it's so relaxing. So just for your mental state, your state of safety, it's amazing. There's other benefits too that I'm sure as they do more studies will come out. So there's like, I think it's like 60% reduction in Alzheimer's.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Crazy. So
that's insane.
Yeah. So they think that you're creating these like heat shock proteins which help to, I'm going to butcher
stimulate
this.
The brain or something
along those lines that like, big reduction in Alzheimer's. There's increase in longevity genes, like one's called FOXO3. So how much of this is true? I don't know. I'm just, relaying what like Andrew Huberman and Rhonda Patrick and these people say.
I mean, they do this for a living, so I'm sure they're relatively all
so
over
there's
it.
no doctor, like, there's no added value for saying like, hey, cold plunges are healthy. They're not like supplements, And so people like literally every single one of the best doctors in the world, the best performance doctors for athletes, like every single person, it's kind of like, 20 years ago, maybe people aren't exercising as much. There's like a Gold's Gym and like weightlifting's not as popular. Now, if you're like, hey, exercise, the jury's out. It's like, no, it's not. It's exercise. Like it's kind of the same. And I'm pretty sure this thing's been being done since the beginning of time. And
that's right. Yeah, that's right. I was going to say on that note, regular saunas associated with significant decrease of risk of Alzheimer's disease, strongest evidence from a large long-term Finnish study, 2 to 3 times a week, 20 to 22% lower risk of developing Alzheimer's disease, 4 to 7 times a week, 65 to 66% compared to the once per week group. That's kind of crazy.
I mean, it's like there's many more studies and stats, and it's tough because not a lot of people are funding these studies. There's not any money. There's no drug to be made around them. So there's some, but it's just like, I know when I go, I feel amazing. I've been doing it for like 9 or 10 years, 3 to 4 times a week minimum. If I miss one, I start to get like, I crave it. And there's nothing else in my life I use with that frequency. And I'll use it like to do a meeting. I'll use it as a date. And so I just could see a world, kind of reminds me of like coffee when there was just Folgers, then like Starbucks comes out. And it's like, oh my God, are you worried about like coffee competition? And like, no, there's like room for like 1 million coffee brands and one on every street. And I think the same will be, like, I think this will be something that a huge percent of the population, like more so than exercise, because it's actually easier and more social. It's like we had on Thursday night, Blondish DJ'd at Othership.
Yeah, I'm friends with some people in their management team.
Fucking insane.
Yeah, she's great.
Like, but the vibe of the space was crazy, and everyone's sober, and it ends at midnight. And you go home and you have a great sleep.
How did I miss this? I should have come.
So we partnered with Daybreaker, and we're doing 8 of these heat waves throughout the rest of the year. So it's 2 months, DJ. And like happy. Yeah, absolutely, man. So you should DJ at our space, but that's a whole other story.
We'll talk about that later.
But I do think like things are changing, and the way people socialize will be more in this context. And so if you think of how many bars there are in New York, there's one on every street. So how many coffee shops there are. So I'm pretty, like, I think the science is here. The professionals talking about it are here, but it still takes, probably take another 10 years to like really penetrate society. But like, I've never been more sure of something just because of how much I use it.
Yeah. I mean, I like to think of the idea of the older the problem, the older solution. So the older the solution, and people have been doing this shit for a really long time, like a really, really long time. Like you said, dunking themselves in the Arctic and sitting in these hectic, the Russian bathhouses. They've been around for a long time.
And a Greek, like before Christ, BCE, like Greek soldiers would use this for training. They'd go in cold water. Like it's like, Socrates would do this. It's like it's the beginning of time.
And these things, as much as you want to, shit on, people like to shit on like ancient history these days. I think there's a lot of value in things that have stood the test of time.
Absolutely.
Regardless of what it is, there's got to be some positive merit to whatever's stood the test of time for thousands of years, because we would not share, we're very mimetic, and we would not share things that aren't valuable to individuals in whatever way. So I think that the studies are just catching up. There's a little side note before we get back into the cold plunge sauna component, but similar feeling personally for meditation. So I think we've had a reason, well, not as intense as yours, but I started meditating when I was 22, 23. I started doing it like 10 minutes a day, and I didn't think about it in any positive light because I couldn't see or feel it. But over time, things began to really shift in my brain and the way I interacted with the world and the things I felt. And then 10 years later, now the studies are coming out, but you kind of feel it, and you have to just go with what feels right. And I think the way we approach studies and the double-blind placebos, all that sort of stuff, is slow and cumbersome and expensive, and it takes a long time to catch up, but it seems like a lot of this stuff does end up catching up eventually. So I put that in that bucket for sure. So I did a bit of a Q&A before this, and pretty much every single person that responded was a girl asking, are cold plunges and saunas good for women? What do I do here? What's the framework? And before we jump into this, I did a podcast with a lady named Holly Sinclair. She focuses on women's health, couples getting pregnant without IVF, it's like natural cycles, all that sort of stuff. And she was okay with saunas, but not a big fan of cold plunges outside of certain specific periods in the cycle. So I'd love to hear your thoughts from what you know, what you've experienced with the people you've worked with, and try and put this to bed for the people that are listening.
Yeah, I mean, so look, firstly, I'm not a doctor. I'm not trying to
sure,
quote papers.
Yeah.
I just know we have the largest cold plunge community in the world.
Yeah.
Multi-100,000 people, probably the most cold plunges in a commercial setting at call it 0 to 4 degrees, 36 to 40 degrees at that temperature. This post went viral by this exercise Dr. Stacey Sims saying women shouldn't cold plunge under 50 degrees. And people in our, there's a kind of a feedback from Andrew Huberman saying, hey, it doesn't matter if you're a woman or man, it's about your specific body, which I agreed with, because obviously some people like it colder, some people don't. And so the response from our community was pretty insane, with a lot of people saying hey, I love the feeling of the dopamine and norepinephrine, that feeling of being alive that comes at 2 degrees. And so we always say at Othership is just hey, this is an ego place. If people are in there for 6 minutes, we'll tell them to get out. Don't even look at your time. We'll guide for up to 2 minutes in a class, but if you just want to put your hands in, totally fine. So I think the number one thing is just listen to your body. How do you feel?
Yeah.
If during your cycle you feel definitely our female guides will say it's harder during that period. I did some research on it using ChatGPT deep research just to kind of see what came up. And there wasn't any studies saying it was negative. There's some studies saying that some women experienced cramping during the time, but there wasn't anything that said it was negative. And then this other thing was saying women, it increases their stress hormones too much. And then when you looked into the studies, that wasn't true either. And so there's this woman, Dr. Susanna Soberg, who's the leading kind of cold plunge. She has a program called the Thermalist, and she kind of refuted that, saying that's not true. The actual stress hormones that you're triggering are healthy for you. They're
even
not
during certain points of the cycle?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's not a lot of evidence that suggests there's any danger.
Yeah.
However, women in Othership often say it's harder to do the colder plunges during that time, so they might avoid or use some of the warmer plunges. So we have different temperatures. So in New York, we're going from 38 to kind of 48 degrees, and so on those days, it's maybe how you put your feet in.
Yeah.
So there's literally no science that a cold plunge that I've seen. So if you're listening and you have some papers, send them over. But I haven't seen a single paper saying a cold plunge is bad for you. I haven't seen a paper saying that at a cold plunge at 4 degrees is negative. I've seen people say oh, you only need 50 to get the benefits. Great. Okay. So those are some of the benefits, but it doesn't mean it's bad for you to go colder. That's kind of where I'm at on it. It's just look, haven't seen any evidence that's definitive.
Yeah.
There's definitely definitive evidence is good for you.
Yeah.
In my personal experience, the colder it is, the stronger the norepinephrine effect. So the stronger that feeling of being alive. I don't want that every time. I personally go in the warm tub a lot at Othership, and then just like listen to your body. And so literally like go in and close your eyes, and like when you feel good, get out. And I think if you follow that, good to go anytime.
Yeah. Yeah. What about eating and exercising, and when best to say eat and not go in the cold plunge because of digestive issues, and exercising and then stopping inflammation and not being able to build muscle? I know there's, so
that's
tidbits here.
That is definitely real. Is I wouldn't, for a weight training day where you're trying to promote muscle growth. So, you're doing deadlifts or squats or curls or whatever, you're doing weights with the goal to grow your muscles. It will blunt the hypertrophy effect. So if you're at your gym, you don't want a cold plunge after a weight training day. However, if you're running or cycling or doing something that's more cardiovascular or even zone 2, perfect for recovery. So just like if you're trying to
really build muscle.
Exactly.
Got it.
You don't want to go, I'd say like 4 to 6 hours.
So you could do morning cold plunge sauna and then work out you could even afterwards, during the rest of the day, or
absolutely. And so I also learned this technique from Devin Levesque at his space, Sweet Honey Farms, which I love.
Yeah, I love it. It's so beautiful.
It's crazy. Like I think that's,
that's my dream.
Like the reverse commute as self-driving cars come, I think will be huge, where you mostly work from home, but then 2 days a week you work from out of the city and you like commute out of the city. So this idea called like, this concept. Yeah, it's a new concept. I mean, maybe I coined it. Like, I don't know. We were talking, it's like what Sweet Honey Farms is. And I'm like, dude, like this is like, if you live in Manhattan, why would you go to work in a building downtown? Like I would live downtown so I can go to plays, be around people. But for work, I'd rather commute out of the city into nature, do my like exercise, cold plunge, farm to table, food, have my work day, and do that like twice a week. Because I think right now you're finding like 2 to 3 days a week in office is like optimal. And so if you have a job at a startup or something, of course, I'd want that time to be in nature. So I think especially as transportation gets cheaper, so with electric cars and autonomous vehicles, transportation will effectively go to zero. So if you're able to go out to something half an hour outside of New York, I think like this reverse commute idea where you're commuting into nature and out of the city will become pretty big. So that's something
concept. I've never heard of it before.
Yeah. So I was there working out with him, and they're all like super fit. I'm like 41, and, so it's the first thing like they start in the sauna.
High energy too.
High energy. So they start in the sauna. And they're like, okay, we're going to do 20 push-ups on the minute, like every minute. And I was like, how many minutes? Like they're just crushing. Like my buddy's there who just ran like 125 miles or kilometers or something. And I was just like, holy shit. So I'm doing the push-ups, but like he will use the sauna to get warm pre-workout, which is awesome. And then I like to pop a plunge just right before I start working out. 2-minute plunge and then go right into the workout. And I found I can work out like 30 to 40% harder.
Interesting. So 20-minute sauna, 2-minute cold plunge.
Even like 10 minutes sauna, just get the muscles warm, 2-minute plunge, then a workout, then a sauna after to end. And so the sauna has been shown to like boost growth hormone pretty significantly. Great for recovery. So I really love to end with like a super long sauna and maybe like a little bit of stretching, let the nervous system calm down. So it's like sauna a little bit, ice plunge, workout, sauna. And I think that's like a really nice combo.
What's the longest you can spend in a cold plunge before it becomes a problem?
Yeah. So I've heard like kind of, I forget where this number came from. It might've been from this group, Morosco Forge, but it was sort of the number floating around was that about 17 minutes to get hypothermia. And that's if you're freaking out. So like you're in the water and you're kind of like moving around, you're not holding your breath, you're not relaxing. And so about 17 minutes, like serious hypothermia sets in. If you're in a cold plunge, I've done 10 minutes before. Now, like when I first started, it was like, oh, cool. How can I push myself? And now I don't even use the timer. Like I'll just go in. I don't think there's any additional benefit, especially at the temperatures we're talking. 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, doesn't matter. I think just go in and look at it as a mental practice, like what feels good. But around like at those temps, like anything over 4 or 5 minutes, your hands and feet will like legitimately start to burn.
Yeah.
And so you will feel it way before it's dangerous. Like by 6-7 minutes, it's quite painful.
Yeah.
And it's not actually dangerous until like that 17-minute mark. So I've, there has been some danger of people like doing breath work, holding their breath under cold water and like passing out and dying. There's been a couple of those. And now there has to be signage that says like, don't hold your breath underwater. And like our tubs are only 28 inches for that particular reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think like it's dangerous, really like legitimately dangerous at any time in an indoor environment, and your body will feel it before and it will tell you like, hey, it's time to get out. And like the point isn't to be a hero and push through max
Yeah.
It's not needed.
Yeah. Well, going back to when we started doing it, it was me and some friends, and then we really started to push it. So we'd sit there and we'd do like intense Wim Hof on the beach, and then we'd all get in the cold plunge.
Yeah.
And the longest I ever went was 22 minutes. And that was, it was fucked.
Yeah, that's hard. That's tough.
It was like,
hard to get. It's hard to warm up after that.
Hours and hours. Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? I don't ever have to do that again. I've done it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I don't even go in for longer than 2-3 minutes. I don't feel the need.
Exactly.
Like I hit my ego level and I was like, yeah, I'm good. Like I know where I can get to. It's a funny story, but
22 minutes is
it was a long time. It was a beautiful day. We were on the beach. Yeah. There was music playing. Like I'm just staring at the horizon and I'm just sitting and I'm like going to see how long I can sit for. And then eventually I was like, okay, it's really starting to hurt.
Yeah.
It's starting to really become
like your hands and stuff.
Everything. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. I think I listened to a Huberman podcast about this, and he was talking about the dopamine benefits, and he mentioned something along the lines of the waves of stress. Yeah. So, you keep going through the waves of stress. So I found the most ideal way to approach it lately just to get it done is sit in it for as long as possible never leave until that first wave ends. Mm-hmm. Might be a minute, might be 2 minutes, might be 2.5. And then at least you're kind of like, all right, I'm good. Just quickly though, I love doing this podcast. If it's positively impacted you in some way and you would like to support us, please subscribe. By subscribing, it allows us to build a much bigger base of listeners, which results in better guests, better production, and a better show overall. Alternatively, please take a look at the affiliate links of the products that I use and love in the comments below and consider purchasing using those links. They'll give you a discount and they'll also provide the podcast a small kickback. These are 2 very easy ways for you to support us as we continue to grow the podcast that we absolutely love doing. Thank you for your support, and now back to the episode. Before we wrap up, there's a couple of things I'd love to talk to you about. You mentioned third places, and I've heard this pop up a few more times. So let's talk about third places and what this means to you, and maybe even explore some of the lack of community issues that are around the modern world and how third places might help.
Yeah. So I think there's a third place, which we'll talk about like why, but I also think there's like a fourth place.
Oh,
which nobody's talking about. And it kind of like a fourth place almost was something that like church fulfilled.
Yeah.
And so if you think of like connection now, so let's talk about why like third places are.
Well, what is a third place? Let's start there.
So it's a place that's not your work and not your home. And so it's a space that you connect with other humans that is like your third spot. So everybody has a home, everybody has traditionally had a home, had work, and then they'd have a third place. So a lot of times like Starbucks was built on this model that you'd have this neighborhood coffee shop that you would go to, and it was the third place that you spent the most time outside of work and home. And it's not like a gym that you go to by yourself. It's a place where you go where there's other human beings that you know and connect with frequently. So it's really like a place to gather with a like-minded community. And there's been like an assault on third places. So you call like, now like, you might not even have a second place. Like you may work from home, you may Uber Eats and eat from home, and it's just like a world of first places. It's just like your fucking home, And so way less people doing religious activities. In COVID, like things dropped off a cliff. Number of like average close. What do you think the number of average close friends a U.S. person has? Like you like
2, 3?
It's 0.8, which means that like most people don't even have
a close friend.
Friend, And so then there's the rise of like social media, which has benefits, but also like really the way it's affecting your dopamine. I don't think we're supposed to live like that. So you take like a society 50 years ago where you'd be seeing people at work, you'd be going out and eating like in the neighborhood often, around like significantly more people, you're having like close, real connection, and that's changed. And so the third spaces have become, first and second spaces. The second space has been destroyed. The third space like doesn't exist. So where are places that we can hang out and connect, and like how do we create more of them? And then beyond connection, I think there's like this idea of a fourth space, which is an idea of a place to process emotions in a group where you're seen by others and you have a place to be vulnerable and share and like be witnessed. And so like that kind of happens in therapy. Most people don't have access to therapy. It happens in traditional cultures. Like the sweat lodge was like exactly this kind of place. It would happen in church. So, it might be a place where you can go and like say, hey, I need help with this. Like I go to this church and I'm not like super religious, but I love this church in Toronto called C3, and they have people that will pray for you. And I don't even necessarily really believe in like God or Jesus or any denomination, but if I go and I just am there and it's like, hey, what is something that you're struggling with that you want someone to pray for? And like pray can mean whatever you want, but like you go up and I tell you, hey man, I'm really struggling with like work stress. And you're like, I'm going to send you some good thoughts. Like that's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
And so where's the fourth place where that can happen? That's not like religiously
inclined,
dogmatic. And it's just kind of like a place where like you can say something, people can see you, and that something is something vulnerable and emotional, and you can like kind of get it off your chest and be witnessed in a group, which is like group therapy is group therapy is often more successful than individual therapy, but it's hard to like, where do you do group therapy that feels inspiring? So that was like a lot of the inspiration behind Othership, was like creating a space to process emotions in a group. And so we're calling that a fourth space. So it's not just a place to connect and gather, it's a place to like be seen and share. So I think that's like the real magic, and something that like most people aren't onto yet, but will be.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I did notice that with some of the classes when I went, there was some opportunities to open up and share. And I think it's challenging to do that in normal environments, but the fact that you've just dunked yourself into a cold thing of water and you put yourself through some stressful situations, the combination of shared challenge, even if you don't know the person, makes you feel connected, which makes you feel like you can open up a bit more. So I do see that.
So that's awesome. It's again, creates the platform to like do that. Like if you just said, hey, let's all go sit in a room and share like our tough time today, like that's like literally zero NPS. Nobody will do that. But the thing is, I do men's work and I've done a lot of these groups.
Yeah.
And there's a magic moment, just like cold plunging, of sharing something and being seen by others and having people hold space for you. Like that moment itself does something in your body and mind that feels amazing. And so it's just, I'd always be like, I don't want to share. I want to go, and then I share and have someone see it. It's like, wow, man, it feels like you're going through X. It's like, whoa, there's something really special there.
Yeah, something.
So that secret moment is almost as important as the hot and cold's kind of just a platform to get to that moment. And I think if you're like struggling with loneliness, that feeling of, even if you're not the one sharing, if you see someone share something that's like, I'm really dealing with imposter syndrome at work, and I feel not confident, or I'm going through a really bad breakup. You see people being human. Like there is nowhere to watch people be human beings right now live. That like doesn't happen. So I think
unless it's
cool.
like Married at First Sight or something.
But that's not real. Like married, like it might happen, but that's not like, and even then it's not like, that's like, oh, like we're infatuated and in love, like feel like
really feeling it. Yeah.
Like it just makes me feel like a human being to hear people struggling and like telling you about that. And so I just like it, life has like so many ups and downs. Being able to feel all emotions makes it so rich and full. So I just think it's important.
No, that's good. I'm currently reading / listening to The Body Keeps the Score, and it talks a lot about this ability to hold space for people and just understanding and how impactful it is on the levels of reaction from trauma. So it all kind of aligns with one another.
Well, that's in the cold plunge and sauna also create this feeling of safety and put you into a state of feeling good, so you're able to process and feel some of these more challenging emotions. And so some of our classes have like very deep emotional themes with like challenging moments of like, forgiveness and acceptance. And so we're using a lot of like getting you into your body to feel those emotions in a safe space and then share about them. So a lot of the classes are designed with processes that come from like Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah, great. That's a great book. I'm still learning. You spoke about the Vipassana being a very impactful component of your life. I did a Vipassana in 2022, and it was also a really impactful thing. And we don't necessarily have time to dig into it this time, maybe another time, but what I loved about the Vipassana, for anyone that doesn't know what it is, it's a 10-day silent meditation retreat where you do 12 hours a day, you're up at 4:30, it's the whole thing. But I love that it was non-dogmatic. They said constantly, no religion, none of it, just this is what this is. And that was, it opens up the doors to so many other people. So I think that's really important, especially with how polarizing the world is these days. And everyone has these religions, be it your political beliefs, be your actual religion, be your community, and trying to find ways that bring people together and create shared challenges and create abilities to open up regardless of who you are is going to be very helpful for us as a society moving forward.
Yeah, we really try to be very careful with our language and to stay away from anything too spiritual. So even like a term like chakra or energy, that might not align with some people. The goal is to make this as accessible to anyone. If you want to have a spiritual experience, great, you have it. But like, we're just talking about emotions, which are universal. And so everyone feels anger and gratitude and acceptance. And it just makes it more approachable to like a much wider audience, which I think is very important.
Yeah, people shut off very quickly. The moment you hear, I sometimes do, like, I hear a chakra coming from somebody. I'm like, oh God, here we fucking go. Yeah. But I'm like extremely spiritual as well. So if I'm doing that,
yeah, exactly.
imagine just normal Joe Blow from finance.
But it's like, what does it even mean to be spiritual? You know, is it just like, hey, I'm really in touch with my emotions?
I think it's an understanding and appreciation of the esoteric and things that don't necessarily make sense in front of you that have a big impact in your world. I think that's what being spiritual is.
Even like using that language can get through to an engineer or a lawyer or a banker. And so it's all like, what kind of language are you using? And so when we do silly things, like they have a point. So we do like a lot of tapping.
Yeah.
And the tapping is to move blood flow and lymph. And so it's a big difference if I say to you, hey, we're about to do this tapping to move blood flow and lymph. Or if I say, hey, we're about to do a primal scream with the idea that you're ready to release emotion versus just like do some tapping and scream. And people are like, what is this creepy thing? But there's like, they want to know there's like some research, some science, there's like a why. And I think we're really trying to make sure that's included. So it is approachable to people who like need this stuff the most. But your point also about church in general, like, you know, what do we need? I think somebody should build, and like, I kind of want to do this after, but like, I was just imagining if it's not dogmatic, like, you know, you have a sermon where someone's talking about gratitude, how to be a good person, telling stories from their life. There's like the opportunity not to pray, but to say what you're struggling with and have people send you good wishes. There's like amazing music. There's like a little latte and bone broth bar when you come in. So it like feels cool. Like you're almost at kind of like a place like this, like it's churchy, but it's just not about God, you know, it's more about like being a good person.
And then the founder writes a book.
Oh, baby, we go that way.
And then the founder dies in some strange way. And then the book gets taken.
But it's like Tony Robbins, for example, incredible experience.
Have you been to any of his?
So I haven't done it live. I've done the virtual, like
Unleash the Power Within. I came back from Date with Destiny in December.
Amazing.
It was a lot. It's we can talk about it off air, but it was a lot. Yeah. Very, very, very intense experiences that I've never felt before. And that dude is just, he's an enigma. He's on a whole nother level when it comes to just like energetically in person. But
then it ends. And so why can't that happen weekly where you kind of go on like a Sunday morning and you're with a crew and it's like good conversation. You learn a little bit. You have like some kind of nutrient food and like, it's a good vibe. And like kind of a new age church that's just not religious.
Yeah.
I feel that will be a thing and I'm pretty excited about it.
I think we need to talk off air about this. Look, wrapping up, I want to jump into just a couple of general philosophical thoughts about your life and the way you view the world, and then we'll finish up. So what is the biggest thing over the last 2 years you've changed your mind on?
So we have an experience that's meant to be 5-star hospitality, and traditionally wellness spas, gyms, they're like, spas are better, but gyms are kind of like the lowest common denominator for hospitality. Whereas like I'd put restaurants at like almost the highest. So we really wanted to bring this feeling of like, this is your home. This should feel like your home. And to deliver that is extremely challenging. Like we're open at 5 a.m. We can sometimes have 700, 800 people a day. There's not a ton of people working. It's open till midnight. It's almost open 24 hours a day when you factor in cleaning. It's a very hard experience to deliver. We want you to have a transformational experience where you might be crying and you feel safe and everything is perfect. And so that there's a level of emotion required for the journeyers, but for the staff, there's a level of expectation for like detail and excellence. And that has been like hard to match. And I think when I was starting, because coming more from a place of scarcity of like, this experience matters so much to me, which it does. And I would kind of lose my mind when we'd have negative feedback, because I just care so much.
The sense of self is tied into it.
Exactly. And like every detail, you know, like I mentioned before, like if the smell isn't perfect, I would just care so much. And I just felt like it was like in my bones, like I get all the negative feedback emailed to me when it's like below a certain score. Like people get anonymous surveys to leave a score, and I look at the score and like, you know, of course, when you're busy on a weekend day in the winter, it's like I'll get 7 on my Saturday and I'll just be like fuming.
Yeah.
And so I think I've just shifted from like, you know, now that the space is open, we're making money. We really went through some tough times last year running out of funding. It's not an easy
concept.
No. And so I think I've just shifted the importance like it is important that the employees are like happy and like really bought into what we're doing.
Yeah, it sounds like a hiring issue.
Yeah, so that meant that thing not necessarily even hiring, which is like how do we act when something is out of place, and is it like, you know, traditionally chefs and restaurants have been insane to hold their standards, and I just maybe there's a better way, and so I'm pretty intense. I really care about the experience that we want to deliver, and so this idea of being kind has started to become more a part of my practice, or I'm aspiring.
What's an example of that right now?
There was a person that came in on the weekend and was like sort of rude to staff, and we'll always like side with our staff. But one of our managers sent them like a really rude message. And in those situations, like you never want to be rude to the guests. If they're inappropriate, the best thing is just to not deal with them again. And so it's just like, hey, thanks for coming. You don't need to tell them like all the reasons why they're wrong. And the manager wrote them, you know, 5 reasons why they're wrong and like what they said wasn't fair. And it's like a whole argument. And I think in the past I would have like called her and said, hey, like, we don't do this. This isn't hospitality. And this time I was just like, oh, you know what happened? And hey, I called her and just said, hey, like, you know, here's an example of like how we could have dealt with this. What do you think? So just getting like, it used to be like, hey, we're going bankrupt. I don't know if this is going to work. Everyone needs to be on all the time. And if there's a mess up, like my life is over. Like that's what it felt like. And now it's feeling more like, hey, we're established. It's working. Let's keep people motivated and not burnt out.
So the buffer helps. The buffer really helps.
Like last year we had, you know, $0 construction workers walking off the site. Like people like, we're not going to finish the job. We couldn't pay them. We couldn't get open. We couldn't get our permits. It was like really fucking tough. And so on that mode, every single thing that's going wrong feels like it's
the end of the world. Even the small things are the end of the world. I understand.
So just different. I have like a little bit more space. This year, I was vaping and drinking a ton of coffee like all last year, like really pushing it. And then I stopped that this year. And so I've just been a lot more healthy.
Yeah, damn. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, we chose this life.
It's not a good quote about it. It's like, hey, you said you're hungry. And then when the food comes, like, you know, you don't want to eat. Like, like I asked for it. And like, we're going fast for a reason. Because we want to build something impactful and huge and amazing. And so, but sometimes it's scary. It's like as much as my nervous system can handle. And then like, it gets to a point where you can handle more. And so you kind of like, okay, it's too much, build my strength a bit. I can handle more. And then it expands again. And so it's kind of like one of the best consciousness practices is just building something hard with like friends. It's a really amazing practice.
Yeah. Nice. What's the kindest thing that anyone's ever done for you?
I think one like really cool one is that I don't know if it's kind because he also was like self-serving to some degree, but our main investor in our first round like really pushed me to take money, and he kind of came in and said like we had one open in Toronto, it was a lifestyle business, and he went and was just like, there's nothing like this in the US. You are like well positioned to make this into something. Like how much you care, it's amazing. Like you should go for it. And I was just like, no, like we're having fun. And he's like, look, I'll give you the money to do this. He gave us a lot of money at like really good terms and allowed us to open in New York. And without him, you know, like once the idea is out there, it's out there. And it becomes pretty obvious that like, oh wow, this is like a really good idea and people like really love it. And so doing that and taking that money, he was very prescient in how fast we'd have to go. Because there's like people copying the idea in different places. And I think executing this is very challenging. But because he gave us that money and we started and we just signed those 3 leases at once, we built so much momentum and we're like the first to launch this concept in New York, like kind of the biggest city in the world. And so it's, you know, a big first mover advantage. So I think him believing in us and like kind of forcing me to do that, whether it's kind or not, it really changed the trajectory of my life pretty significantly.
Yeah. Can you see where it goes in 10 years?
Yeah.
What out of curiosity, what does it cost to put a place like that together? Because it's very well done. It's very high end. It seems like every little touch point has been considered, but it's not a big space at the same time.
So, I mean, what do you think that would cost? What would you
I would say a couple of mil.
How many is a couple of
2?
7.5.
How do you make your money back on that?
And $2 million, you can't even build a yoga studio in New York.
Wow.
Like you literally can't build anything in New York for $2 million. Like it's like so expensive to build here.
Wow. That P&L must be ridiculous.
Yeah, it does well. I mean, it's not going to be the most profitable unit, but it will do well. And it's a good business. Like,
fuck.
like that's though like why you don't see these on every corner. It's because they're just really expensive to build.
And then even harder to manage.
Yeah. And then like, that's not a huge space. So there's other bathhouses that are multiples of that to build around the city. And it's just fucking hard. Like to go and take that kind of risk. Like I know others who are trying to build what we've done and they're looking at numbers in our first,
would I do this?
Well, our first unit that we built was $2 million. And then people think, oh, it's in Toronto, but it was a very small unit. It was during COVID. It was 4 years ago prior to inflation. And so a lot of people like they raised $2 million to build this and then, and they're not, or they're failing like right away. And so it's because it costs way more. And so it's
insane.
It's to like sign these leases. Like, you also have to put up usually $700,000, $800,000 security deposit, get all the permitting, all that kind of stuff. So it's a big risk to take, I think.
I guess how long does a time period, how long does that renovation last? So can you do that'll amortize that across like 10 years before you have to?
Like we're looking for 10 years and then 2 5-year extensions. So we're hoping when we build these that they're like 20-year units.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's fine. I mean, as long as you're around for 20 years and you amortize across 20 years, it kind of works out. Yeah. Wow. I didn't expect that. It's a big number. And I've seen some other places that are even crazier. I can only imagine how do these places even make it make sense? I wonder that so often.
They make money. Like they can, if you can get it open, you can do volumes in New York, like pretty insane volumes.
Maybe because I'm from a small city, I don't actually understand the level of volume that you can do in.
There's some of these spas that are on the outskirts of cities that'll do over 100 million in sales for like a single building. Yeah. They'll have like 3,000 people a day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. But those will cost like 50 million to build. And so it's like, how do you get that money, the permitting? It can take 5 years to build one of those projects, maybe longer.
Interesting. Yeah, cool. Wow, the more you know. I feel like I'm gonna know the answer to this, but what is the most beautiful thing you've created?
I think on my 40th birthday this year, like my 30th birthday, I did drugs the whole night, and then I kind of woke up like to go out for a cigarette, and there was a surprise party and my parents were there, and I just felt like such a piece of shit, hadn't slept. And that was like a low moment. And this year for my 40th birthday, my wife was like, hey, we're just going to pick something up at Othership. And I went, and it was like probably 250 people there. My family, friends, they were all there. And then my co-founder sang me a song.
Different song this time?
Like he not like the song someone else, like he wrote a song and sung it about me in front of like the whole group in the sauna.
Do you know any of the words?
It was like, I can't remember, but it was just saying like, one was like, you're the most inspirational man I've ever met. And so it was a love song, like man to man. And so I've just never seen like another man say these kind of things about somebody in public like that. And so it was like a ballad. Like it was really good. It's like, you're made of stardust. Like it was really cool. And he belted out. He's a really good singer. And so that was just being there and then like having my whole family there and looking at like, holy shit, like we're in Flatiron with this like epic space. We got it open. People are here. This is fucking crazy. Like what a dream. Like I used to listen to like, Jay-Z in high school, like hear like New York and these kind of songs. And it's like, well, this is like New York. So it just feels to put something on the map here feels like the most like craziest thing I've made.
It's pretty cool. What book have you gifted people the most?
So I don't like gift that many books. I always listen to that. I'm like, wow, how smart are all these people that they're like gifting books to everyone? I wonder how many people are actually doing that.
Why don't we reframe it? What book would you like to
gifting
gift?
People
Yes,
books? Yes. What do you gift books?
The Way of the Superior Man's a book that I've gifted a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. You did it. Yeah. You called me out.
That's a real good one.
If I have to recommend, so I read, like I'm working all day. And like at night, I just read like a lot, but I read like fiction. I love, like I've read like 1,000 sci-fi and fantasy books, like just crush them. And like love storytelling and stories, even like the nerdiest books. So like if I'm like, hey, what is the best series? It's a series like Red Rising. Have you heard of it?
No.
Space opera.
What's like space opera?
It's like a story like Star Wars that happens in like a world of like many planets across like a universe, basically with like space travel and like drama.
And that's called journey. Space opera.
The series is called Red Rising, and
the concept is
called a space opera.
Never knew that.
Yeah. So like big worlds. Star Wars is like a space opera.
Yeah.
Like incredible book. So it's like 7 parts, 6 are out. Book 5 and 6, like I legitimately cried. It was like this is the best, like the best battle scenes. It's like so. I love like these like worlds that are built and like getting lost in them. Red Rising. And then I love stuff about like near-term science fiction of things that like could happen in the future. So this book called Nexus. It's a trilogy. And they take these like nanobots, which people think, what's the guy's name? Ray Kurzweil. Ray Kurzweil thinks in like 10 years, you'll be able to drink these nanobots that will come into your brain. You'll be able to upload your consciousness. He's the guy who predicted the singularity. And he's saying like 20 years ago, like now with LLMs, we're on track for this.
Yeah.
So this book like is written by a Microsoft futurist, and it's based on technologies that like could exist. And so it's a future where you like basically drink this cocktail. It's almost like a psychedelic. Nexus. Yeah. And it allows you to talk mind to mind, like communicate mind to mind with people. So like a mother and her child in the womb, there's groups of like hundreds of meditators that will go and will combine their minds to meditate together. And it's just like the concept of how much suffering would be taken away from the world if like you knew exactly how I felt and like what that would be like. And so it's just really fucking cool, like thinking that thought exercise. And so that book, it's got AI in it. It's a thriller. It's an action thriller also. So it was really good stuff. That's just like a enjoyment.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about what my brain would sound like. It'd be like, da, 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 da. It's like a song playing on loop. And
then it'd be so cool. Imagine like, and you could see what my brain was like. You could feel into other people's brains or experiences. And so you could like live a day in the life of somebody else. It'd be like really interesting.
Well, I mean, a lot of the problems in the world come from, I feel like, our emotions that we feel and our lack of our language being able to actually communicate them effectively.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's a very crude way of communicating a very vast landscape of emotion.
Well, you feel like your way is the way, and it's just
the way.
It's like I don't think we realize how much our conditioning has changed us versus each person. It's like, oh, you're a human, I'm a human, and no, like I'm sure our day to day and thought processes are like a million times. It's probably such a different experience.
Yeah.
Emotion's probably the same, but like what triggers in a thought pattern is probably completely different. And so to understand that, I think would create a lot of empathy and be really interesting.
I find that fascinating. Well, I have a fascinating example around that. When you look at other people's Instagram and TikTok feeds and you realize how different of a world they are in compared to what you are in, and it's their world and they think that is the world, and it's the opposite. A lot of the times completely different. Yeah.
Yeah. Even those people are the people who are using Instagram and TikTok. There's like worlds of people that like don't care for that and like think completely differently. So.
Well, it's just a very good way to clearly articulate this fact of a different world, because there's an algorithm that is catered towards what it thinks is going to be the most interesting thing for you, and the subset of people that are like you. Yeah, it's a wild rabbit hole to start going down. So wrapping up, what's one lesson you hope everyone can take from this conversation?
Just the importance of like hanging out with people. And something I heard recently from maybe Tim Ferriss was just like, the best longevity hack is just 2 slow dinners with friends a week.
Yeah.
And I think I was like, chicken breast in my pocket, like in a bag, like measuring my macros, doing 4-hour morning routines and like the longevity and all this stuff. Like I listen to it, I'm into it. But at the end of the day, like I gave away my whole last decade working. So when I was 30 and my company failed, it was just like, I'm going to work so hard every day until I get successful. And so it's like, I don't want to say give it away, but I sacrificed a lot. Like I listened to like thousands of podcasts and business books and networking discussions and just like spent all my time thinking about work. Or like morning routines and optimizing and all that stuff. And just now I'm kind of going back to what I cared about in high school. And I just think, like a dinner, we have a 2.5-year-old. And so I spent a lot of time at home. And so now like going out for a dinner with friends, it's just like, it sounds so easy. Maybe it's just like so part of everyone's life. But for me, like, it's just so enjoyable. And so I think it's like one thing to remember is just like go out for, you're feeling shitty, like go out for a dinner with a friend and have a good conversation.
Yeah. I remember seeing something on Twitter that was basically saying that a lot of the times just to actually get yourself out of depression, just get out of the house as much as possible. And it kind of helps if you're just doing shit. You don't have time to think about being depressed. And I think as much as you might hate Trump as an example, he's like, I remember listening to him say something along the lines of like, I can't get depressed. I'm so busy. I have time to get depressed. It's just like, go do more. And then you won't be depressed because you don't have time to think about it. You think about other things.
Yeah, I think if you're building stuff, it just feels good all the time,
Yeah. What are you excited about that you'd like to let the listeners in on at the moment?
So I've been thinking a lot lately. I mean, we have a couple of major goals. One is to create a space to inspire people to have fun without alcohol, and then 2, to help people process emotions, and then 3 is to help people make new friends. And so like what we have now is sort of our first version of that. I've just been thinking about what this could look like in 10 years and getting really excited. Like last year it was like, we're going to die. We're not going to make it. Oh my God, you know, and now it's like, okay, it's all going. Like, how do we expand again?
How do I make my life more miserable?
Yes. But like just the design phase is so exciting. And so I was just like imagining a mix of kind of like, are you familiar with the Hoffman process?
I know of it. I haven't done anything with it.
Amazing.
Did you go to one of them?
Yeah.
Okay, worth going to?
A million percent. Like I would put it on the same as like impact levels as Vipassana, if not even more potentially. Yeah.
It's like 6 days,
7 days. I think it's like a group. It's kind of like the Vipassana of group therapy.
Interesting.
So it's like that. It's like 10 hours a day, very strenuous, a lot of like physicality, cool exercises, but like what you get when you come back is awesome. I do think there's an opportunity to design something like that for a younger generation.
Yeah.
And so I think like outskirts, you know, mega $50 million bathhouse meets retreat center meets Hoffman. And so ideally we're going to build many, many, many units in New York. We funnel our customers to this like retreat where you go to learn something, stay. There's a bathing center that people can go day to day. So I really want to build this like mega epic thing in nature that's kind of a mixture of like Hoffman, Canyon Ranch, and a bathhouse bathing environment for like deep work.
Is that a 10-year down the line thing, do you think?
I mean, to like get the money and do the construction, it'll probably take 5 years. So, and I think we're too small now, but I think, you know, over the next 5 years, we'll probably build 10 more units for sure. And that'll put us at like 15 units. And so I think at that point we can start, we have the juice to like do something like that. So, and I think we'd have the construction skills. Build. I think so. It depends. Like what, maybe you start small and like buy a site where you can like do it in stages and stuff. Yeah. And like even how I would start now, knowing what I know about entrepreneurship is like, let's just see if we can fill a retreat, someone else's retreat locally. And like, let's get the retreat popping and let's do 1,000 people through retreats in Hudson Valley at other places and see, and then eventually build my own. But the excitement of like, how do you build this community in New York around this space and have people go even deeper in like different ways? It's like, that's like really exciting.
Yeah, the community is a really hard part there. Wow, sounds good. I have been thinking about this idea, and I'm probably never going to do it because it's not my expertise, but creating a hospital that is less sterile and more focused on, you know, really healthy farm to table food and outdoor time and grounding and healing people through more holistic mechanisms, but also having a world-class medical grade solutions involved as well.
Really cool.
I think
I hate the hospital.
Everyone does.
I don't understand why they chose like the lighting and the materials. It like feels like strange design choice. Like why wouldn't you not, like the lighting specifically makes you feel like, why am I here? Like it's not pleasurable. Like make it feel inspiring and nice. Like I don't get it, you know? So I don't think it's a cost thing. Like tone of bulb is not like different. You would make it, I don't understand, to be honest. Like it feels when I go in, I'm like, this is something that was designed 50 years ago that like doesn't take into account that people want to be well when they're here.
Yeah. I mean, there's two schools of thought. You can go down the route of it. Like they actually don't want you to be well, or that they didn't understand, or they did understand and they wanted to, you know, the fluorescent lights want to keep the doctors awake so that they do better work because they're alert. That could be a reasonable outcome for it. But I don't know about people thinking about this.
But like, I like when I go into places, they feel inspiring. It's such a big difference. Like the gym I work out at, places I eat, like this space where I want to do podcasts, it feels nice. It feels like, just like it makes you feel better, you know? Yeah. I think spaces have a big impact on mood and like ambition and all these different things. So it's really nice to be in like, I think your idea is phenomenal. So you should do it.
It's one of many. Let's start with the other one we can talk about off air. And where can people find you if they're interested?
Just on Instagram, Robbie Bent, LinkedIn. It's my name. Othership is just Othership.
Great. And my last question to wrap this up, what's the meaning of life?
My best moments recently have just been with my son, like looking at him and I watch him like smile and laugh. And it's just like super simple to like makes things forget. It makes me like feel like incredible joy. And so I don't know, I'm not smart enough to say what meaning of life is, but I just know that like that moment with my son feels like really right to experience as a human.
Nice. Thank you, Robbie. Appreciate you.
Awesome.
Cool. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please go to YouTube, search That One Time with Adam Metwally, click subscribe, like the video, and leave us a comment.